I'm Skip Dillard, Program Director of WBLS and WLIB, and you are locked into the Movement Magazine.
Welcome everybody to the Movement Magazine. I am Trey Kearney, and I am honored to be with the Program Director, Skip Dillard. Hi Skip, how are you doing?
Doing just fine. It's good to see you again.
Well, I gotta shout out WBLS. So, you know, it's so interesting the way radio is going right now, right? So first I want you to tell everybody what a Program Director does so they can be clear.
Sure. I guess closest would be the quality control person, responsible for the music, hiring DJs, identifying people that may be future talent for the station. Definitely first and foremost, my job are the ratings, to make sure that we're satisfying the needs of our listeners, so we not only keep the listeners we have, but we get more, or as many that are available, to the station who use radio.
Okay, with the way radio is going and how prevalent the internet is, what keeps a radio station intact as opposed to being shut out like 98.7 KISS FM?
Well, KISS was a different situation in that it was a financial move in order to help the company that owns us now be able to weather a very tough storm. In 2008, of course, until about 2012, with the market downturn, with banks, with housing, radio was impacted because companies just simply stopped advertising. So we found ourselves sometimes $5 and $10 million down year to year. Basically, the company, we were owned by Inner City Broadcasting that had been around 40 years, went bankrupt. We were put into a holding company, and was partially owned by Magic Johnson for a while. And MS was able to pick us up and bring us into the family with Hot 97 because they had been able to weather the storm. Part of it was leasing KISS to ESPN. So, but what keeps us relevant, or any radio station that's successful relevant, is really it's connecting into the lifestyle. For us, we have a niche in that we serve African Americans. If you look at TV today, you may have 400 cable channels. How many are dedicated to African Americans? I think today maybe 8, if you include the fringe networks like Bounce TV, ones like, there are many networks like We and Bravo that feature some black shows. But most of those are reality shows and not, dramas or documentaries or things that, have any, serious impact on the African American community, or positive impact, I would say. So, the beautiful thing about black radio is that as long as we're touching our community, we're part of the lifestyle, we can continue to be relevant. We're also perfect partners for the digital platforms and technology that are out there. We have over 500,000 on Facebook alone in terms of followers. We have tens of thousands on our other social networks, from Instagram to Twitter. And so we're able to create content for these platforms, and that makes us very important. For radio as a whole, it's the fact that it is still free, it's still portable, very easy to take with you. You can hear it in every city. And if it's done right, you kind of get a local feel for the city you're in when you turn on a radio station. There's a lazy way to do it, in which one size fits all, and you have the same DJs basically laying down voices in other cities. And so that makes radio less relevant, because you can get the same thing anywhere, and there's nothing special about it. But our goal is to keep it special, keep it local. Local is one of radio's greatest selling points, always has been. When 9/11 happened in New York, or the events that transpired during 9/11 that affected New York directly, you saw the men separated from the boys, the women from the girls, because you couldn't play 10 in a row anymore. You had to take the music off, give people information, calm people down. There was a lot of misinformation going on. There was a lot of issues that were getting out there that were rumors that could have affected more people and put them in danger. So a good communicator has to know how to stop the music, talk to people, calm people down, damage control, reach out to leaders, community leaders. I was working in Buffalo, New York at the time, and City Hall had just been cleared because there were a lot of copycats. After the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and Pennsylvania, all of a sudden everybody started calling in bomb threats and other stupid things. And Buffalo City Hall was cleared. People were in the streets, and I had to go on air for 4 hours and basically give people the best information that I could come up with. I called our city council, got a person to come in, talk about what the city was doing to protect Buffalo, New York, given the fact that, you know, we're in the same state as New York City and all the devastation that was taking place there. People couldn't call loved ones, you know, many people in Buffalo.
Chaos.
Chaos. So, you know, being able to cut through all that was probably the most challenging day of my entire career. And there were fewer.
Wow.
But, but that's where radio really can do its best, and I think remains relevant, thankfully.
So back in the day, and this is probably a question that a lot of people have who listen to radio, and new artists who are trying to break and get on the radio, such as 107.5 BLS. DJs used to break records.
Sure.
So that's changed a little bit. It's changed a lot. It's shifted. So what makes a program director or a radio station pick a new artist and a new song?
Number one, first and foremost, the story. Artists have to have a story. Maybe you're like Stacey Barr, who's a new artist. I really love John Legend's artist. With John Legend behind you, I don't know what else you need. You know, for a rapper, having a mentor per se, or a mentee. You know, mentor is, you know, being a mentee is something that is valuable in the hip hop side. But maybe perhaps you've been opening for some really big artists. Let's say that Shaka Khan came to town and you were selected as an opening act. Let's say that you've been doing all the festivals and received a standing ovation during Afropunk in Brooklyn and no one had ever seen you before. Perhaps a major record executive like a Clive Davis anointed you the next big thing.
Okay.
That helps. It can be, a story can be as little as selling out of the trunk of your car and selling 10,000 records. That you funded yourself and quit your job, and you've been making money just off of sold out shows in places like SOBs down the street. That you've been selling enough music through iTunes and again CDs, you know, just going place to place that you don't have to work anymore. That immediately grabs attention, and it's something we look at. I do love to meet with artists when I have time. Time is always a factor, but you know, I enjoy hearing their stories. But you know, first and foremost, when I look at a record to put a record into rotation, I usually try and play something that's the heaviest or hottest on our playlist right after. Your record has to be able to stand up with what else is there.
Relevant,
and you'd be surprised, it's New York, but I get records all the time that aren't mastered properly. The vocals are too loud and the music is distorted, or you know, it sounds like they did it in their garage and didn't send it off to be pressed and processed. You know,
quality
and to be quality. Mastering is everything. So you know, it has to, number one, be able to stand out and stand up against the Alicia Keys and those that were already playing.
Yes.
If you can do that, then you've got a shot. You know, the one thing I try to tell many artists, I'm not a record company. I can't make your career. I can't market you. Airplay is marketing itself, but you got to take that airplay and run with it.
Yes.
You can't talk to me, tell me you're going to shoot a video 6 months later. I don't care about a video. I care about the quality of the record and your ability.
Can you say that again? I don't care about.
I don't care about a video. Could care less. I care about the quality of your record and your ability to get out and market it yourself.
Yes.
Nobody watches videos in that way anymore.
Yes.
You still see them occasionally. But I'll tell you, I see, for every artist we play, I see probably one video for the 20 or 25 current records at one time that we'll play. I probably see one of those 25 in terms of video. People just don't use video in that way anymore.
Yes, and how relevant is an artist coming from you, trying to pick an artist to play their music? How relevant is their numbers on social media? Because so many people, I got this many followers, and then you see somebody with 2. So how relevant are those numbers?
There is some importance, but you know, numbers can be fudged. I think more important is how you're utilizing it.
Yes.
The response that you have to the people that do tweet you and retweet you. Are you responding to their questions? You know, someone that I've noticed lately has a huge following on social media, to Sanchin, who won one of the shows, I think X Factor, one of them a few years ago. She's a Jamaican Asian artist, and I mean, they tweet me, and I'm like, "Whoa, you guys stop! It just gets crazy." But it's cool because you see that it gets your attention. If you can do that, you're doing good. You know, social media is a big part of it, but also it's how you utilize it. You know, not just putting pictures. You know, it's a female artist, not to pick on a female artist, but you know,
No, just
seeing
they need to hear
seeing
this.
you in a thong and all that, that means nothing when it comes down to looking at your record. You put some clothes on, give me some good music.
That's
what
it.
That's all I care about.
What do you think about the state of R&B right now?
I think that, you know, here's the challenge that we have. There's some great stuff out here. I mean, Tyrese is, you know, in the building now doing some projects during his Urban World Film Festival tour as we record this. And I think you have artists that are really, really pushing the envelope. Alicia Keys, I've heard some of the upcoming projects she has. It's not out yet. Incredible. You know,
Nice.
She's back to old Alicia.
I'm excited.
There are many others that are, again, doing some amazing things out there. You know, it was good to see D'Angelo come back and make a statement and strong. You know, Maxwell, who knows when he'll drop again, but I hear it'll be phenomenal what he has.
Nice.
What's in the can. I think he has about 2 albums ready to drop whenever, you know, he decides to get them out there. But on the flip side, you know, you don't have music in the public schools, and that's where most of the artists come from. They don't come from, you know, high-end private schools or School of the Arts. You know, most of these young people are coming up in public school, and when you don't have arts and music programs, like when I was coming up, creative writing, poetry were part of the curriculum. It's not anymore. So, you know, when we complain about, there's some song that's out now, a rap song like "Where You at? When You Dead?" You know, well, how are you going to know anything more than that as a student if you're not taught there's more to say than cussing or calling women out their name and
There's reading music.
Yeah, and so. Again, you need arts programs back in the schools as part of the curriculum. You know, you can't hope to have another Stevie Wonder if you don't have that.
Yes.
You know, kids won't even make it to a school of the arts unless they can get music included into their elementary school and even preschool education. So that's something that I think has stalled us a bit. But there's always hope. I mentioned Stacey Barth earlier, and I can think of half a dozen other artists that, you know, really have us excited right now and feeling like, okay, you know, there are some good things happening out here, but we need more.
Oh, that's good news. So I'm not going to hold you much longer, so I'm going to ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
I wanted to speak to the children, since we're talking about kids and what's in school. Talk about students shifting their energy from being in front of the camera, being singers, performers, to the behind the scenes of a program director, to be behind the scenes of being a writer. It's not everybody's not going to make the front of the camera. So please speak to them about there's other stuff.
Oh yeah, and very often, you know, the money to be made, if you watch Empire or any of the new shows that have popped up lately, it is behind the scenes. You know, unfortunately, I think we've made too much of you know, too much noise over, you know, just having all the flashing lights and Bentleys and Rolls Royces. Well, you know, not everybody is meant to be in front of the microphone, in front of the camera, and I can think of 1,000 people that have, you know, come through. Think of many groups that, you know, disbanded and they're struggling today. You know, doing concerts for, you know, $100 a pop at small clubs to open or whatever. It happens, and so there are a ton of starving artists out there. And, you know, however, though, if you're able to become a good manager, a good executive, and learn how to run a business, if you're good with money or you're good with coming up with creative content or marketing, someone putting marketing behind somebody else's star, you can become a star yourself and very often earn even more money and more accolades over time. And, you know, there's tons of room for, especially a woman or African-American, Clive Davis, or another L.A. Reid. I mean, there are just so few you can count on one hand.
Yes.
And there's tons of room at the top. You know, if you look at the success of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre and what they've done post Dr. Dre's performance career, it's nothing short of phenomenal. Dr. Dre is far richer than he ever would have been had he remained an artist. But by getting into technology, getting behind Beats headphones and producing and staying mostly out of the spotlight, you know, he's become very close to, you know, what, you know, could be considered to be one of the few billionaires in the entertainment industry. In fact, it's a known fact. Forbes, there was a good article in Forbes just a few weeks ago as to why no musicians are billionaires.
Yes.
Bono's not, if you look at U2, none of them. Rolling Stones, none of them are billionaires. And that's because, stars tend to live a star status type of life.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't manage money very well. They spend cash and spend.
Yes,
What
yes.
they make goes right out of the window. And not only that, the people that are managing them, the executives that put their music out, they're the ones that make the billion become
Behind the
billionaires.
scenes, people, please.
David Geffen of Geffen Interscope fame just gave, I think, $100 million to Lincoln Center to rename the Symphonic Hall there. Name an artist that could afford to do that. I can't.
So we're going to shift to one more question, and I want to talk about, because the Movement Magazine is all about giving back. So we know that I see Lenny Green and Dr. Bob Lee and a couple of your personalities who always go back to the community. Mm-hmm. How important is it for you guys to give back to the community? And is that mandatory for your staff?
It's not only mandatory for our staff, I think, and this is just a blessing that they're already doing stuff coming in. My philosophy as a program director is I ask when I look to hire someone, what are you passionate about?
Yes.
For you, it's about healing.
Yes.
I already know if you were a DJ, I'd already know where we would put your resources.
Yes.
Women's empowerment, children, youth. You've got a book, for instance, on coming back from infidelity and all you've dealt with through that. So that is already, your passion is defined. So we just put you to work there. Deja Vu, one of our DJs, she's on in the afternoons on WBLS.
Yes, I love
her
Deja.
passion is empowerment. So guess what? That's where we send her.
Yes.
That's where she sends herself. And so, there are many gifts that all of us bring, and many of us have unique, different interests, whether it's education, whether it's children, whether it's anti-drugs, anti-crime. And so, all of our DJs have initiatives that they're involved in. Some have their own foundations.
That's wonderful.
And we're pushing one of ours now to get a 501c3 because she's coming out of her pocket,
I love it.
doing a spa day for abused women and getting them from the
wow.
shelters and treating them. And we bring her DJs, we cater, and we run her spots free for her in order to, help on our end as best we can to support her. But look, this needs, my boss actually got on and was like, look, this needs to be a foundation.
Yes,
you can't
yes.
continue to pay thousands of dollars every year because you're doing something that definitely is benefiting the community. So it's everything. And for urban radio, it's expected. It always was. Two DJs I'll briefly mention. Hal Jackson, who was one of the founders
Yes.
of BLS originally, and Jack Gibson. Used to write, a very famous DJ. Jack was on the air by about 40, right after the war, about 1948, 1949, one of the first African Americans. And whenever there was a struggle or a serious situation in the civil rights movement, he would be on the air in Atlanta, small AM station, WERD, and the police chief would call and say, look, son, you better calm these niggers down, we'll knock some heads. Well, knock some heads, and Jack would get on the air and he'd say, look guys, we're going to meet tonight over at the community center down on so-and-so.
Yes.
Come on, we're going to figure this out together. We're going to figure out how to get permits to peacefully march. Or we're going to vent together, we're going to figure out what we do and come up with a plan of action. So, in many cases, it was up to the DJ to save folk from going to jail.
And getting killed.
It was up to the DJ to go get them off the street. And he said, whenever the police person was on the other line, he knew it wasn't going to be good news.
Yes.
It was about something that was getting ready to go
Community is
down,
very
and you better get these black folk in check. So that's what we came up with. And Hal Jackson on the flip side, he had actually owned what was kind of at that time the Negro League basketball team for DC before blacks were able to play in the NBA. So he would call the games. Someone mentioned that he had a voice and should get on the radio, and he called in for an interview, and being that his name was, I think, Harold B. Jackson, they thought he was white naturally. And when he got there, the GM looked and gave him that smile and brought him into the office and said, look, I'm going to save you some time. I'm going to save you some headache and some trouble. But ain't no Negro ever going to be on the airwaves in Washington, D.C. And Hal was determined from that day.
Oh.
Probably the reason I'm sitting here, we're all sitting together at
Yes.
this moment. That's where we come from. And so every time I have a frustrating day or, we're all yelling at each other, I go back and I think about, hey, that's why we're really here.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, everything gets reset.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time and your
Anytime.
talent. Thank you for
Anytime.
giving people opportunities. We appreciate you. We are here with Skip Dillard, the program director of WBLS, and is it just
WLIB.
WLIB? That's right. I need to have my correct information because I was telling my son, make sure the smartest person in the room asks questions. So WBLS, yes. So we thank you so much, and we look forward to what's coming next. All the artists that you mentioned. And I'm Kearney from the Movement Magazine, and we will support you any way that we can. Just please let us know. And I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Please tune into the Movement Magazine. I'm Kearney, and you've just been here with Skip Dillard and WBLS.
Cut.